Okay, so for this week's review, I kind of want to start the first one off with just a quick refresher on offensive positioning. Um, I've kind of, I guess, traditionally, maybe not traditionally, but we might hear it pretty often, or at least I do in a lot of shinnies, is that the thinking is that left wing has to stay on the left side, right wing has to stay on the right side. Um, Center has to stay in the middle, and the same could be left D, right D. And I'm not a fan of that mentality. And really, you can see, like, this is, let's say, some people say, stay in your zone. And that would be, I would say it's accurate in the defensive zone. But once you get in the offensive zone, I don't like that mentality, and it really limits your options. Um, and it really boils down to producing something we would call straight line hockey, which is the wingers just come in a straight line, shoot the puck, and then we're back the other way in a straight line, right? And it's not really conducive to good hockey, and I'm not really a fan of that, and I like having fluidity in hockey. So, and the other thing is when we're stuck in our lane like this, we'll often see players kind of like in a straight line, like even horizontally. And let me just change it to this angle. So like right wing, center, left wing, we'll find ourselves, you know, horizontally in the straight line. And it just kind of becomes difficult. Like let's say a puck is on the left wing. They can pass the center, they can pass the right wing, but they're essentially all in a straight line. There's no triangulation. So we limit a lot of options, and it's super easy to defend. Like you just stick a couple, defenders, put another defender here, right? It's really easy to shut down, and I'm not a fan of that. And the other one you might hear a lot is to crash net or just go to the net. And I'm hearing that a lot often for red tapes, go to the net, go to the net. And I'm not a fan of that either, where it's super easy to defend. You just stick a lot of bodies in front of the net and you're just crashing and banging. It makes sense on the rush, perhaps, fire, like if you're coming into the zone, fire a puck and people can come in and jam rebounds. But if you have puck possession, I'm not such a fan of everyone just parking in front of the net like this. You don't create a lot of plays, and it's not conducive. It's not a really good environment for creative playmaking. So, so the little refresher I've kind of said in the past is a little mindset change where you're no longer these left wing, center, right wings in the offensive positioning. You want to think of yourselves as defense or just a player on the ice. So F1, F2, F3, and even defense. Let's just call it player 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll have a default, and so the defense will typically stay on the blue line, and the forwards will typically stay deeper. But it's not to say that we can't just rotate people around like so, as we are passing and moving the puck in the zone. So that's one mindset change that I think everyone should work towards. And the other one I really liked is just imagining you're cutting that ice in half. Just if the puck is on the left side, you just think, okay, cut that ice in half. I want to be on the left side of the ice. And the most basic positioning I'm a fan of would be someone to occupy somewhere on the half wall, and this is called the half wall because you are halfway between behind the net and the blue line, so you're halfway, and someone is going to be in the corner. So I like to kind of draw it. It's fairly free flowing, but somewhat. Let's actually clear that a little bit. It's more kind of like this zone. And where you want to be is kind of dependent on where this puck is. And how I would explain it is if the puck is up by the D, so either this player or the one in the middle, Then we would try to move towards in front of the net for rebounds, tips, and deflections. If it moves to the half wall, we have a couple options. We could choose to be on the side of the net, behind the net, in the corner, somewhere in a more support role rather than staying in front of the net. And then this player right here, we're kind of thinking of a zone, a nice square zone like this. And I'd like to say default somewhere along the edge of the circle. It's a really nice area to be in. People tend to forget that you're there. And that is my first default, or I'm a fan of this kind of basic positioning. And this kind of leads to the ability to cycle the puck around, right? And like I said before, we can use this circle as our guiding point, because now usually you're not going to be given a free lane to the net like this as a forward. It's just not going to happen. But typically you will have some leeway to go around the circle like this a little bit. And that's your first guiding point. If you're not seeing any passes, you're not seeing anything open to you, we can start to make some moves by skating around, find some open lanes. And so, for example, this forward could start skating around the circle like this. And this is going to be the basis of a cycle. What that means is they're moving across, we want to cue this player that's down here to come in and fill their spot, right? So they're going to go from there, they're going to come in, they're going to fill that spot that is now left open by this player. And that's also going to be a cue for the player that's in the slot to come down and fill that spot down there. And as this player with the puck is coming up the circle, they have a couple options. They can say, oh, I want to shoot it. That's option one. They can say, okay, well, I'm not seeing anything now. We can send it up to the D. We can send it backwards towards the boards. We can send it backwards towards the D. And so lots and lots of options. And it's just going to be a judgment call as you are going. And you can repeat this over and over again. And you're just going to create lanes and options. And it's not to say we can only skate this way. We can definitely skate this way. And it's going to repeat the same thing. So let's say this player is coming down like this. That should be a cue for this player in the slot to say, okay, well, I need to fill that spot now. And this player down here say, okay, well, that part is empty, so I am going to need to fill that spot. And same thing, this player can look for a pass. If they see an open lane, they can maybe drive the net. That's an option. They could pass it back to the half wall. They can look for other passing lanes to the D. Maybe that's going to be lower down the priority list. Or another option is they just continue skating and we switch to the other side. And what is that going to look like? Let's just delete all this. If they continue skating along, we're going to say, okay, this player, it's a cue for them. Hey, I need to fill that empty spot. We're going to move here. So it's going to gradually transition. So it's going to be more like this. And that cue is, okay, we got to follow and fill that spot. And this player that's in the slot there, you say, okay, well, the puck is transitioning over to the right-hand side. Well, we want to switch to the right-hand side first. Okay, we're switching to the right-hand side first. And then if we're finding that, okay, we're not getting a pass here, we have a couple options. We can decide to fill in this spot where they can pass like this. Or they can just wait if you can see that they're still skating. And eventually, if they're going to still skating like this, right, we're going to see like this. And this player's going to say, well, I'm going to need to fill that spot. And naturally, this D will kind of swing across. And you can see how it's all mirrored on the right-hand side. And we're going to repeat the same thing, right? We can cycle in either direction. And so that's the basics of positioning. and how we want to think about things. We don't want to think of our left wing, center, right wing, lefty, righty as a firm guideline. That's more of a guidance for defensive positioning. But once we get into the offensive zone, it's really fluid. We kind of want to change our mindset to that. Now, to expand this further, once we have good puck possession, there sometimes is going to open up some freedom for this center defense, in that they could find a little bit of some backdoor plays and sneak in, like so. And if not, we can find a lot of spacing. And what their role really is going to be is almost to be the same player as the half wall player, but on the opposite side. And then this D can move across. And this is really only going to occur if we're seeing that their players are staying really low. So if they're high like this, we kind of want to stay on the blue line. But if we're seeing them kind of start to really compress the zone, we can start to sneak in, and we can find a lot of open lanes and tricks like this. But that's going to be more advanced, and but it's going to be kind of a judgment call. If you see openings, you go in for it, but otherwise we can stay safe and play on the blue line. And so let's leave it there. That's kind of a refresher on offensive positioning, and let's kind of keep this in the back of our minds as we go through the review this week.